Hello, coming back to finish up the practice problems that should be completed by now. So just going through them quickly here, we're going to be factoring out a 2x squared. That is the greatest common factor. We're going to be left with a 6x plus 1. On this one, be very careful. There's that minus in front, so we're going to pull out a negative 5, and when we do that, we're left with 6x plus 1. And then the 6x plus 1 is the common factor that we're going to pull out, and we're left with 2x squared minus 5. All right, the next one, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of bring this one down here. So it's a 12x squared u plus 3x squared v plus 28yu plus 7yv. And when you look at this one, you're going to notice there's extra variables, and that's totally fine. Process is still going to work the same. So go ahead and split that into your two separate portions, and I'm going to factor out a 3 and an x squared here, leaving me with a 4u plus just a v. Let me back up to that one, plus v. In the back, 28 and 7, I'm going to pull out a 7, and then it looks like they both share a y. And so I'm left with 4u plus v. Notice how those match nicely. Pull that out front, 4u plus v, and then the remaining binomial will be 3x squared plus 7y. So a little bit more challenging. And then the last one, and if you noticed here, they kind of do get more difficult as we move through. So at this point, we're going to look at the very last one. I'm going to scooch that out of the way here. So what happens is in this first part, I'm going to go ahead and split that to those two, and I'm going to split there in the back. And what I'm going to do is pull out a 7 in the front, a 7, and it looks like they both have an x. And I'm left with 8w plus 7k squared, parenthesis, minus, this is my minus sign, and the 24 and the 21 both have a factor of 3. So I'm pulling out a negative 3. And then also a y, so negative 3y. When I do that, I'm left with 8w plus, remember when I pull out that negative from here, this turns to plus. It used to be a minus, and that's going to be 7k squared. And look here, those parts match. Has to happen if it does indeed work to factor by grouping. If I pull that to the front, I get 8w plus 7k squared, and then I'm left with 7x minus 3y. And this is the product of factors. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead back to the beginning problem. And if you looked back at it, you may not have seen the connection right away because initially this is our polynomial and it's written as a trinomial. And then you'll notice that today for grouping, how many terms did we have every time? We had 4. And so what happens is this 2, we needed to split up into 2 separate parts that were equal. And so just to kind of show you that, a positive 2x has now been split into a plus 5x and a minus 3x. And you're going to learn how to do that later on in future lessons. But at this point, you'll also notice that instead of the y, we put this equal to 0 because that's what we're going to do when we try to solve. Now, what we learned today was how to use the grouping method. So that's where we're going to tie this together. The first portion, I'm going to pull out an x, and when I pull out that x, I'm going to be left with x plus 5. And then in the back, I'm going to pull out a negative 3, and it's going to be x plus 5. When I factor that out, still have this 0 over here. And then, due to grouping, the x plus 5 matches, and so as I factor that part out, I have x plus 5, and I am left with x minus 3, and then over here I had my 0. If we wanted to know the solution of this, then what happens is we need to figure out, well, what value of x would make this equation equal to 0? Well, if you want it to be equal to 0, what would have to happen is x plus 5 would equal 0, or x minus 3 would equal 0. and we get an answer of x equals -5 and x equals 3. Those are our solutions. I think it is important to note that if you look on the graph right here, that is the solutions for this quadratic. And what you'll notice is this here, which is our x-axis, is really the line y equals 0. And so our solutions are where our parabola crosses the x-axis, and we are also able to find those solutions by factoring using grouping. All right, so in closing, I want you to think about what we did today. So we did learn about factoring. And what kind of factoring did we specifically talk about today? We talked about grouping. And in order for it to be a grouping problem, there were very specific ways that the expressions looked. Can you think about that? What has to be true in order for us to do grouping? There has to be 4 terms, okay? So to finish up our lesson today, you're gonna actually go to Padlet, and you can either scan this QR code right now, or you can go into Canvas and follow the link, and you're gonna complete one post in this Padlet. You're gonna open the closing question and make the selections based on what the question asks, and then you're gonna create your own post, okay? In your own post, you are going to put the letters of the polynomials that answer the question that was posed. And then you're going to tell, in your own words, you can either write a complete sentence or a phrase. It's totally up to you. What characteristics do grouping problems have? And then you will include one new grouping problem and the solution. You can use any format that you want. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of quickly pull this up for you so we can see what that looks like. All right, so as I try to pull that up for us to see, we are going to be working in our Padlet. Okay. And here we go. So when you open up the Padlet, either using the QR code that you scanned or using the link, this is what you're going to see. It's loading here, and the directions are to go into this closing question. It says which polynomials can be factored by grouping. So you're going to go ahead and find the polynomials here that can be factored by grouping. Maybe you decide it's A and B. At that point, you will exit out of here, and you're going to go and create your own post. You can put your name in the subject. You could put your solutions in there if you want. You could even answer the questions. Or you could come in here and decide to do an audio recording. You could do a screen recording, a video recording. Maybe you even just do a drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show this. Maybe you say, you know what? My solutions are A and B. Let's see if it's going to let me do this on my... So maybe my solutions are A and B. And that would be, this is not the true answer for the questions, but then maybe you also say, you know what, the characteristics in order to do factoring by grouping, we have to have factoring by grouping, and then maybe you'd say 2 things. And I'm going to just let you kind of decide that on your own. Maybe it's 1 thing. And then the last thing you need to do is you're going to come up with your own grouping problem. So maybe look something like this. And I'm just starting, but then you're going to think about what has to happen back here to make it work. And then you will finish your problem by actually factoring it. Okay? And then saving it and posting it. Again, if you want to just create a video, or if you want to, do this on paper and take a photo of that and share it, there are all kinds of options. So in closing, today we did work on factoring by grouping, and you are going to be completing today's lesson by submitting a response in Padlet. We'll see you next time.